Welcome to another episode of the E&E Show, where we talk about equipping and enabling Christians to reach unbelievers and make disciples. I'm Bucky Elliott at International Commission, and today we have the distinct privilege of speaking with Alex Brito, who is originally from Brazil and serves as a church planter in London, England. We're going to talk about how he reaches out to internationals in the cosmopolitan city of London, where there is a diaspora of people from all different parts of the world, very diverse city, and all the ministry opportunities that creates to work together with people from different traditions, different cultural backgrounds, but who all agree on who Jesus is and the priority of the gospel, how he crosses cultural barriers and works together to share the gospel to the ends of the earth through those relationships. Welcome, Alex Brito, to the program. I've met you just one other time on another Zoom call, but with a whole bunch of people before. So how did you get involved in ministry? What in the world are you doing in London?
Wow.
And then I'll ask you more specifically about what God is doing there and other parts of the world as you see it.
Wow, that's a long story. I'll try to keep it short.
Okay.
So I'm from Brazil. I grew up there. I spent my whole childhood in Brazil. I grew up in a Christian home, but at the age of 15, I decided to leave the church. I was into music. I had my band. I was into heavy metal. I had my band, and I think it was a season when I decided to just leave the church, and I lived a wild life, Bucky, a wild life. At the age of 21, I came to London as an international student, and I think somehow I was far away from the bad influences that I had around me. I had a lot of time in my hand. My mom sent me the copy of the Pilgrim's Progress. I read it. And the gospel made sense in a way that it hadn't made sense before. Read it again, and then I began reading the Bible over and over again and sharing the gospel with whoever was in contact with me. I was full of the gospel, and I couldn't keep that for myself. I was just sharing it with everybody. After a year, I had a group of 15 people reading the Bible with me on a weekly basis. So it became something more than just sharing the gospel. It became a kind of proper discipleship, kind of fellowship. And I knew what that was. I've got an uncle who is a pastor. He was involved in church planting as well. I knew that was a church. So I keep telling people that I became a church planter by accident.
Yeah.
It's not that I decided to come to London to plant a church. No, I came to London from God, and my accident. God is sovereign. He knew what he was doing.
Oh, yeah, of course.
That's how I got involved in ministry. That's how I became what I call now, a church planter. But this church was a kind of monocultural church. It was a Portuguese-speaking church. And after 2 years, Bucky, I was feeling very uncomfortable because my English improved. I began engaging with people from different backgrounds, and I was struggling with the discipleship process. I was still sharing the gospel with everybody. But if you couldn't speak in Portuguese, I had to send you to a different church. And that was making me feel very uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
To make things more complicated, my wife and I, we had a good relationship with this Hungarian lady who said, no, I'm not going to join another church. I don't mind joining this Portuguese-speaking church. So she got baptized, this Hungarian lady, she got baptized in this Portuguese-speaking church. And then we had to do interpretation. We had to, yeah, interpret the service from Portuguese to English. And yeah, things inside of me got worse than before. So one day I sat down with the leadership of the church and I said, I think it's time to change. I think it will be will it will be much better if we could be an English speaking church. We are in London. Come on, that's the that's the language everyone speaks. And if you don't speak, it will be good for you to start
Yeah.
learning because it
Yeah.
will make your life much easier. For two reasons, not only for the sake of helping you to get a better job or to communicate at your kids' school, but it's a mission opportunity. I mean,
Yeah.
if the nations are here, they always speak English. Well, if you learn the language, you can be a missionary here. But for my surprise, the church was not keen to change. We were growing fast. And monocultural churches, they tend to go faster anyway. So yeah, they said it's working, we are growing. Why are we going to change? I'm driven by passion and conviction. So during that time, I decided to step down. Yeah, and after a year, my wife and I, yeah, we couldn't see the reason, and we couldn't see a reason to stay here in London. So we moved back in 2009 to Brazil, got involved in another church planting kind of project, but I couldn't forget London. I really wanted to see that dream of an intercultural church, a missionary church in London taking place, becoming a reality. So to tell a long story short, in 2015, we moved back to London to plant this intercultural church that we did not see becoming a reality in the past. And in 2018, we launched publicly with only two families. An immigrant, Brazilian, planting a church from scratch in central London, brother. People would look at us and think, this is not going to work. And you want to plant an intercultural church, not even a kind of diaspora, monocultural church. Oh, you're making things more difficult for you. But I love a challenge, and not only for the sake of the challenge, but just because I really think it's biblical. It's
Yeah.
biblical. If London, I mean, there are more than 300 languages being spoken right now in London. The nations are here. 40% of the population of London, they are migrants. I mean, they are people born outside the UK. We don't have the numbers for the second generation, people like my kids. We have no idea. And they are not British. They are also not
Yeah. They're
Nigerian
multicultural.
or,
Yeah.
yeah, they've got these multiple identities, if I can put
And
like that.
that's really, I mean, that's the just the younger generation globally. There's a global youth culture that they kind of
Yeah.
have their own multicultural culture. Even those who've never traveled outside of their home country, something that that really is kind of foreign to us, but we can take advantage of.
That's right. Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
go ahead.
And this is an opportunity. I mean, a lot of people, they see that, oh, it's a challenge. These second generation and third generation, they face this identity crisis. Well, only if they're not believers. If they are Christians,
Wow.
they have their identity in Christ. Therefore, these different cultural mindsets makes them the best missionaries ever. So
Yeah.
here in London, we are facing one of the best seasons. I keep telling that, okay, to everyone I meet, is London is so intercultural, so diverse that if we look at it from the perspective of church history, it's a unique moment we are facing right now because Paul did not have the internet. Paul
Yeah.
could not travel around as we can travel right now. Man, it's so, I mean, right now, you see, we are on different parts of the globe and we are communicating.
Instantly. Yeah.
If
face to face.
If Paul
Amazing.
was here, man, if Paul was here, that guy would be all over the place.
You
But
mean no
not
more
always so.
shipwrecks? No more snakes and poison and jail? Well, probably still the jail, but maybe
No,
less
not really.
shipwrecks.
Not really if you're in London. This is the
Well, not
thing.
in
So
London. No, not in London.
not
Yeah,
in
you
London.
have
No persecution. You can be a global missionary because you can travel. You get an airplane. I mean, in Europe, I can be in Germany, your home country, in 1 hour. In
yeah,
1 hour.
yeah. It's amazing.
So yeah, and the internet, you can communicate the gospel in different ways using different medias, no persecution. So it's one of the best seasons. And I keep meeting missionaries and Christians and saying, let's make the most of it while we can,
Yeah,
because one day we're going to give an account. Okay.
yeah.
And sometimes we have these conversations of, we say to one another, oh, when I meet Paul, I'm going to ask him a lot of questions. Well, I think he's going to ask us a lot of questions. What did you do with the opportunity you had?
That's a really good word, amazing message, but I mean, it's a really simple thing, isn't
Yeah.
it? If we look at the life of the church in the New Testament, and then we, compare it to our world, we really have the same opportunities, but even more now,
Yeah.
to reach beyond our Jerusalem, our own city. And even there, even in
Mhm.
our own city, like you're talking about, even there in London or me, I live in the Dallas Fort Worth area. The world is
Ooh.
coming here, just like you said. The
Yeah.
world is coming here. I have so many missional opportunities, evangelistic, cross-cultural opportunities to reach completely unreached people with the good news of Christ who
Yeah.
have never heard it,
Yeah.
and they're here.
Hmm.
And now, albeit they are here in kind of an increasingly post-Christian America, and not only have they not heard the gospel and I have access to them if I just do it and obey the Lord, but they
That's right.
have other family members who might be in their home
Yeah.
country.
Yeah.
And who else can reach them but them? So that's an exciting thing. I want to hear, how can you
Uh,
reach the world? How can you gain access even to unreached people where you are and
yeah.
unreached people in other parts of the world right from London?
Yeah. Um, because London has been a very diverse place for a long time, people are used to this. Okay. So yeah, and if you live in London, there are 9 million people living in London right now. If you chose to be here, you like it. Otherwise, you would move out of London. Yeah, yeah. If you don't like diversity, you move out of London because it's up at your face all the time. If I open the door now, I'm telling you, I might bump into people from I mean, on my street, I don't even know how many different kinds of nationalities and cultural backgrounds we've got here. It's one of those things you stop doing because it's just part of of the culture here. It's very multicultural, but it's not intercultural. Okay,
Okay,
what do
yeah.
I mean by that? You've got all these different cultures segregated in their own kind of bubble. Okay, but they live really well. Okay, so going back to your question, it's just, I mean, yeah, I think it's finding ways to build the bridge between different cultures. Um, I love John 4, the passage that Jesus goes to this Samaritan village. And if you read that passage, you're going to see that in verse 4, it says that Jesus had to go to that place. It
Yeah.
was not an accident. Okay. And it was not that he lost his map. He knew what he was
He
doing.
was going on
He
purpose.
yeah, he was traveling from Jerusalem to Galilee, crossing through
And he went
Samaria.
this way.
Okay,
Yeah.
as a Jew, you're not meant to do that. He did it because he had to do it. Every single time John, the writer of the Gospel of John, uses the verb have to. He's referring to the will of God. It was God's plan. So I keep telling people, do you want to engage with people who don't look like you? Go to places you wouldn't go.
Yeah. Or
Go
maybe you feel like you're
cross
not
these.
even supposed to go. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, people are gonna call you crazy. They're gonna stare at you like, what is he doing here? He doesn't look like us. Do it. Jesus did, so do it as well.
Well, it's a good way
I
to,
know.
to kind of, not that we're seeking attention, but it's a good way to open doors. I mean, it is.
Yeah.
It is
Yeah.
attractional. Someone's going to ask you, well, what are you doing here? Well, there's
I've been
already an
doing here.
opportunity built in. It's automatic, right?
Yeah. So cross it's what I call the territorial barrier. Okay. These barriers are everywhere. Multiple cultures. No one is crossing those boundaries. There are obstacles. Cross it. Cross the territorial barrier. But you don't stop there. So Jesus, he goes to the Samaritan village. He sits down. He sees a woman, okay, a Samaritan woman. He was not meant to engage in conversation with her. What does he do? He starts a conversation with her. Very informal. We're gonna have an informal conversation. Water is the subject.
Mm-hmm.
She then reminds him, well, I'm a woman and a Samaritan woman. In other words, you're not meant to be here. We are not meant to have this conversation. He doesn't stop. He carries on.
Mm-hmm.
And from water, they end up talking about spiritual things, moral things, right? But what is Jesus is doing? He's crossing the cultural barrier. So we need to go to places we wouldn't go and engage with people we would not engage with, okay? But we don't stop there. So as I said, from water to a kind of a spiritual conversation, moral conversation. Yes, you don't have a husband. Actually, the man you live with now is not even your husband.
Yeah.
And then they talk about, oh, you Jews say that is in Jerusalem, the right place to worship God. We believe it's here. And then Jesus says, that doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
When you receive this living water, the Holy Spirit, God is going to dwell in you. You don't need to go to temples anymore. You're going to be the temple. Anyway, as he's having this conversation, the penny drops. Do you have this expression in America? Yeah, when you come to the realization that, wow, hold on, this is not a beggar asking me for water. He is the Messiah we've been expecting. Bucky, what does she do? She runs back to the village. She leaves behind the jug of water, whatever. She forgot why she went to the well. And she shares the gospel with her people. Sometimes we read that passage and we ignore this, the power of crossing barriers, the territorial barrier, the cultural barrier, the spiritual barrier. You engage with people you would not engage, but you engage in conversations that are going to change their lives. You talk about the good news, but also about the bad news. Yeah, morally speaking, there is something wrong with you, and I need to tell you, it's gonna hurt. But diplomacy can keep that friendship, but can keep our friends from hell. So sometimes we will need to tell the truth.
Yeah.
Not to hurt people. We do it as doctors. Well, good doctors, right? Good doctors, they would give the diagnosis, not to hurt you, but to help you to see a reality,
right,
so that you can desire the treatment. Brother, she goes back. She tells everyone in the village. Jesus arrives in this village and people beg him to stay there for 2 days. Does that answer your question? We've got a strategy there.
That's it. Relationships. Cross the barrier and build relationships. And that's
right,
the context in which the gospel's gonna come out, because that's what's real and true and should be natural to us. as supernatural people, right? There may be so many different things about us, but especially if you can speak the same language as someone, you have
Yeah.
everything you need already. You are equipped by God Himself, by the
Yeah.
Holy Spirit. And if you know the gospel, you can articulate it, not as a theologian necessarily, but you have a testimony if you know Jesus. And if you can do that, what else do you need? But I love that part in the story where that you mentioned, where she goes and she runs back and tells everyone, "Come meet this man who told
Yeah.
me everything I've ever done,"
Everything.
and he's the Messiah. And that's very interesting culturally as well for a Samaritan woman to say that, and to say it about a Jewish man. But that's a whole other deep
Yes.
conversation as well. But it is
Yeah.
really remarkable and amazing, because what we see there is a life changed like that,
Yeah.
just by that good news of who Jesus is. And we can do that. We can do that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. It's through the power of the Holy Spirit.
yeah.
We are just the tools. We are just the tools. So yeah, even if you're not bold, do something, because God is gonna. You know what? God loves to use whatever looks weak.
The
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
unlikeliest of vessels. So
Mm.
um working from that, how would you summarize maybe the kind of the story of your church for the last couple of years, if you
Okay.
could?
Yeah. So as I said, we began meeting in my home from 2015 to 2018, building relationships. Brother, the number of people we met, huge number, a lot of relationships. Unfortunately, but this is something that is out of our hands. Unfortunately, not many of these people actually put their trust in Jesus.
Hmm.
I'm talking about hundreds of people. We were doing a lot of different things, running English classes, something called the International Cafe, where people would come to make friends, play games. We were doing a lot of things, a lot of connections, a lot of relationships being built, but no conversion at all. By God's grace, there was a family. We had a lot of Bible studies in my home. But in 2017, if I'm not wrong, a family decided to join us. They then got baptized. Um, and we thought, well, maybe now is the time to launch this church publicly. So that's what we did. We decided to hire a place in central London, not far from a famous church called the Metropolitan Tabernacle. That was the church led by Charles Spurgeon.
Yeah.
Okay, that area has changed. Okay, those hundreds of people who would go there on Sunday, they are not going anymore. Okay, it's a dark place. London, in general, less than 10% of the population would attend the church right now on a Sunday.
Um,
Okay, and I keep telling people, just by attending a Sunday gathering, just by some would go by going to this meeting, to church, that doesn't make you a follower of
right.
Christ.
Yeah.
So the number is very small. Okay. So yeah, we then launched publicly with two families. Actually, there was a third family who came from the US, from Florida, Tallahassee, to help us for 4 months when we launched publicly. So yeah, it was a group of 6 people. Yeah, we launched in September 2018. In January, this couple from the US returned to America. And this family who was with us, they bought a house quite far away from where we were meeting as a church. So they all left us.
Hmm.
So I had to, that was a hard time. So in January 2019, it was again just my wife and I and my daughter at that time. But there was a family we had met on the street that kept coming back, and they kept coming back. So I never had reasons to stop.
Yeah.
I never had reasons to stop, because it's what I keep telling church planters. If God is giving you the minimum you need, don't give up. Okay? Yeah. If God is giving you the minimum to pay your bills, can you pay your bills? Don't give up. Carry on. You don't know what God is doing. Do you have at least one disciple you could be investing on? Don't give up. You've got the minimum, go on. I mean, you have nothing to
Maybe
lose.
it's a Timothy, you know.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. But anyway, because we met this family doing outreach on the street and they kept coming back, I began doing that. I began going to the street, stopping people, sharing the gospel with them, and the church began to grow. And right now, I mean, we've been through a long journey. Because we want to be an intercultural church, I think we're never going to be satisfied, because there is always a different culture that could be added. So I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it.
The vision you have is a vision
Yeah.
of the kingdom of heaven and what it
Yeah.
looks like, you know, that Revelation
7.
imagery that we see, yes, of
Yeah.
worshipers from every nation, tribe, and tongue.
So I think I'm going to get satisfied in the new creation, in heaven, not
Yeah.
here.
Well, maybe we're not meant to be. We're not meant to be until then.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is good. This is good. Yeah. So this is the story. Well, funny. So we've got now a family from the US getting ready to move to London to take a kind of internship with us as well. Yeah, interesting, man. We've got a lot of connections with the US somehow. The US is a blessing to the world, you know that.
Yeah. One thing that we get to do is partner with churches all over the world who are doing what you're doing. They have a missional mindset. They not only have the goal of reaching people with the gospel, but they are doing it, and they're doing it on an individual basis and collectively. Because that's what it takes. How are you going to reach people if you're not praying for them by name, building a relationship?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not going to happen. It's not the pastor's job to do it. We do this together, and we do this together cross-culturally, internationally, because it's the joy that we have, and it's an opportunity that we have, and God is moving there, and we're going to do that. You had the opportunity to go to a partnership that I see was a part of in Brazil. Tell me the story of that, and what have you taken from that to what you're doing now, and maybe what more has God revealed that we can learn?
Yeah. So what happened was we moved from London back to Brazil, got involved in another church planting project. Somehow we heard about the International Commission. They were going to do something not in our state. It was in a different state. Somehow, I can't remember exactly how that happened. We managed to hire a coach and take a group from my state to São Paulo, Brazil, to join the International Commission there. But I went as an interpreter, okay? Now my job is just to, and here's a funny story, okay? I was very pragmatic, man. Very pragmatic. I thought, I really believe that you could somehow help God.
Hey, I think we've all been in that spot.
Yeah, no, but it was a game. It changed me. This trip, it took a whole week, 7 days, morning to evening. We would wake up 7 in the morning, go to bed. It was a very unusual kind of trip, because although we had the arranged meetings, people were just spreading the word, man. So sometimes you would go to a home at 6 o'clock, and then they would say, "Oh, can you please come to my neighbor's house to share the same thing?" And you would never stop. You would doing that. You would carry on doing that until midnight. I spent most of my time with a gentleman that I can't remember his name. I can't remember, but he was dry. I would go to different houses with him. He would share his story. Boring, boring, man. And as an interpreter, I'm here. Shall I help him? Do I need to help him? I need to
Dress it up
make it
some.
more engaging. But no, I stick to the plan. As a translator, as an interpreter, you need to be faithful. Anyway, he would share his story, and then he would share the gospel. People would put their trust in Jesus. I was like,
Too easy, right?
and not easy, but come on, we need
Too
to
simple.
help God.
Yeah.
And then he would do the same and the same and the same, and people kept putting their trust in Jesus.
Oh,
I remember one day we went to this house. He shared his story. He shared the gospel. I translated everything. One man in the house did not put his trust in Jesus, and I thought, yes, I knew this. This is not the way. Anyway, we went back to the car. I realized that I had forgotten my Bible inside of the house. Bucky, when I got back to the house, the husband, the man who did not put his trust in Jesus, was on his knees
wow.
crying. And I
Wow.
thought, oh.
Wow.
Anyway, when I say he was boring, it was not that he was boring according to my concept.
Right.
Okay, he was just being faithful. He knew that it is God who does the work. God is the one who saves. It's through the power of the Holy Spirit.
That's
So I
right.
kept walking with him. And anyway, God was using him to teach me, oh, Alex, don't be so foolish. It's not you, it's me. And you see, you don't need to come up with anything that you think. We don't need manipulation, Alex.
Yeah, it's not, you don't need the sales techniques.
No.
You don't need eloquence of speech, just the power of the gospel, right? And
It
partnering
was
with
just the
God himself.
gospel.
Yes. So
So it
good.
was mind blowing. I came back different. I came back, yeah, a different person. I I I did not come back home bolder, but yeah, but at least theologically speaking, I was a different person. Okay, to
Wow.
put like this, theologically speaking, I was a totally different person. I knew that God is the one who saves, and He can use whoever He wants to save, and He saves whoever He wants to save when He wants to save. That was a burden that was removed from my shoulders. Wow,
Awesome.
I don't need to. Yeah,
So
yeah. It was a good
how did that
experience.
affect your ministry, from that time forward?
Well, as I said, that burden has been lifted up. Okay, so now I do a lot of door knocking, street evangelism. I literally stop people on the street. Brother, I don't get offended when people don't engage in conversations with me, when people get angry. That theology is still here. It's not me. If the person doesn't want to listen, it has nothing to do with me.
That's right.
It
And
has
really,
nothing to
there's,
do with me.
the reason we get upset or offended by or frustrated by things is because our expectations aren't met, right?
Yeah,
In almost
yeah,
any situation, that's the reality. If our
yeah,
expectations are, I don't know, if they're not realistic, if they're not biblical, then we get frustrated. If our expectations are they're going to be
yeah,
good soil or hard soil, then what what does it affect me if someone is
yeah,
not receptive? They're not
yeah.
rejecting me, right?
And there is a need, yeah, there is something else. There is something else. There is an idol in our hearts as well, right? It's
Yeah,
pride.
that's
No,
that is true.
you know what I mean? I want to see the results. Why? Why do you want to see the results? What is it? Because you want to go back and say, well, you see how God used me in a powerful. Come on. Yeah. The thing is, when we read Matthew 28, verse 19 and 20, Jesus never promised, he promised something. I will be with you to the end. He doesn't promise results. And actually, if you read that,
Wow.
it's all imperatives. Go make disciples. You make disciples, but like me. Yeah. You go to places you don't want to go, engage with people you wouldn't engage, have conversations that you find it awkward. If God does something, well, great. They become believers, baptize them, integrate them into a church family, and teach them to obey everything I have commanded. When I'm on the street, I'm not worried about results. I'm worried about, am I being obedient?
Yes. Yes.
So I know it won't make any difference to what I'm doing. God, you are the one who is going to save. If it's a red light, it has. I mean, of course, you need to be careful. If you are rude to people, of course, the light is going to be
Right.
red. But if you're doing everything to make sure people are going to appreciate what you're doing, oh, it's a red light. Or Mark 4, right? There are different
Yeah,
kinds of soil.
that's right.
God is the one who plows the soil anyway. That people's heart, it's God who is going to prepare that. If it's a number light, well, just manage the expectations because you still don't know. And even a green light, Bucky, even a green light. Again, thinking about the four soils, a green light could be could be something that is growing,
Yeah,
but
it could be
eventually will
rocky
die.
and it'll dry. Yeah.
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 So I think the big thing is it's all about being obedient. Go do things without even expecting any result. Don't have expectations. I had a conversation with someone recently. He was like, I'm very skeptical about these kind of things. Why? Because of results. Well, yeah. It will be better than staying at home doing nothing,
That
right?
is
Yeah,
so
it is.
right. That is so. If we measure our success in evangelism by whether we do it or don't do it, then we have an accurate measure, not
That's
how many
right.
people got saved. Well, that's not up to us. And like you said, I mean, all those green lights, we don't exactly still know what kind of soil they are. We don't.
That's right.
They
Yeah,
need
yeah.
discipleship, but that's the measure of success in evangelism. Do you do it or not? Not.
Yes.
And the
Simple
other
as
thing I
that.
thought of just now was,
Uh,
people like to criticize, and I have
uh-huh.
done this. I still do this sometimes. I have to be honest.
Yeah.
A
Yeah, yeah.
method of evangelism that someone will use, and especially to me, I I am not always a big fan of someone who has one like presentation or one method, one tool for sharing the gospel, and they always use that, and they guarantee success if you do this. I'm not really into
Yeah, yeah.
that because I've seen God use so many different things, right?
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
if it's not in the Bible, well, then it can't be the one tried and true method. Anyways, but while I sit here and criticize someone else's method of evangelism, well,
Mm.
if they are out there using it and I am not out there at all, I'm the one who really should be criticized, right? I'm the only one who has failed because I'm
Yeah.
sitting here instead of being out there telling people. So
And, and the thing is, if you think about methodology, think about Jonah. And what a rubbish methodology. Going to to a
that's true.
hostile place. And there was not even good news in his message. You just and the whole. I mean, one of the big ideas of that passage. I mean, one of the sad things is Jonah's disobedience.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
and God's work despite it too. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Jonah's disobedience and his lack of compassion. No, I don't want you to do it because I don't think they deserve it. So when we refuse to be obedient, again, you need to search your heart again. What is it in your heart that makes you reject people? You reject what? Why do you lack compassion? Do you really believe that hell is real? Is real? Do you really believe that only Jesus can save us? Who can give us eternal life? It's only through him that we can have a proper relationship with him. If it is, why do you lack compassion? Because by not being obedient, whoa, there is something. It's all here, brother, in our hearts.
Yeah, if we avoid going and sharing the gospel with strangers because or even friends,
Yeah.
because we're afraid of them rejecting us, have we already
Mm.
rejected them? Man, that's an irony that is
Yeah.
convicting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. You've told me some specific ways of through obedience, through discipling a community of believers who are reaching out to people. But kind of in general, how do you see God working in London, in the
Okay.
United Kingdom, in Europe as a whole?
Mhm. Yeah, London is a great city, not because of its diversity or the number of the population, but Christianity is growing here comparing to other places in the United Kingdom. Yeah, mainly because of the diaspora churches,
Wow.
mainly because of the Afro-Caribbean churches, African churches. So yeah, we are growing here, and that's quite exciting, very exciting. So besides planting a church, I also work for an organization. It's a new organization called the London Project. So we don't do anything apart from catalyzing. We just want to connect, convene those connections, put leaders to get to know one another and build relationships between them. Because if London is a huge mission field and very diverse, we need a diversity of leaders sitting down together to learn with one another. So when I meet leaders, I say, well, I know you have your tribe. I know you need it as your home. Just don't allow it to become your prison, because we won't be able to reach London for Christ through one kind of tribe.
Yeah.
We need to learn with one another. We learn a lot when we are in connection. Okay. And also, so connecting, convening those connections, and facilitating co-creation. We want to see more churches being planted. Not that we are going to plant, because there are a lot of organizations already in London, a lot of churches that could be doing that, but they need to they need to be doing it. So yeah, it's been exciting to be working part-time for this organization, because it's when I see there is a little movement here. I don't call it a revival, because um, there is a kind of gospel renewal, like church really asking themselves, what is the gospel? What is really the
Good.
gospel? Especially when you come from diaspora churches, like, wow, I grew up thinking this was the gospel back home, and now you introduce me something that I never heard before. For example, there are a lot of prosperity gospel churches. That's all they heard all their
Yeah.
lives. And these guys, when you sit down with them, brother, they have no desire to be to be deceiving people. They are just duplicating what they learned when they were
That's right. Yeah. It
back
inspires
home.
compassion, doesn't it?
The same thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
The same thing for the natives here. A lot of liberal churches, a lot of liberal churches. And then yeah, yeah, and you introduce the gospel to this church, and they're like, wow, this is exciting. Well, yeah, this is this is the gospel.
Yeah.
Well, we never heard that, because we never actually had good teaching here before. But yeah, there is a movement. We can see that people are very humble in all regards, humble to be learning with others, to be yeah, exploring different ways of doing ministry. Because again, if you are part of a tribe, or this is the way we do
Yeah.
things here,
Hmm.
um, but then you get to know someone who does things in a different way. You're like, wow, okay, I'll try this. It helps you to see your blind spots. But not only that, because London is a global city, I was thinking about that today. The window 1040, right?
Yeah.
We've got people from all those countries in London, okay? So I'm going to be creating I call it a table. I've met just in 2 weeks, Bucky, I met 7 missionaries who came from different parts of the globe to London to reach out Muslims. And I was like, wow, this is not a coincidence, man. Let me connect these guys so they can sit down together and create strategies together. So stop doing things on your own. We can do more together than we can do on our own. So let's sit down together. Okay, we've got this window that everybody keeps talking about, sending missionaries to these places. It's hard.
Yeah.
And we all know that the people from those countries, they are here. Can we reach it out to those people, equip them, and we send them back?
Yes.
Because they know the language, they know the culture, they can do mission on day one.
That's
if
right.
I go, it would take me 10 years. Okay, that's the reality. I'm in my 40s. It would take me years to learn the language. It would take me a long time to know how to navigate the culture. If they accept me, if they accept me, it would take. But I can send someone. Okay, I can send someone, someone trained, equipped, safe back home. He or she will do a much better job. So do you see what I'm saying? There is something very unique. And I when I meet leaders, I keep saying, please, we don't know how long we're going to have this freedom of religion here. Okay, we don't know. Because, yes, Satan works 24/7. From the moment he realizes that we can see what God is doing here, he's gonna do what it takes to stop this. So let's make the most of it while we can. But even if persecution comes, that's been part of church history
persecution is a
anyway.
catalyst for kingdom
Yeah,
growth too.
it is. It
But we
flourishes.
don't want to beg for it, right? We don't want to beg for it.
No.
You got to take advantage of the freedom that you have
Yeah,
now.
that's
Yeah,
right. Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah. So yeah, it's quite exciting what is happening in London comparing to other places of the United Kingdom and seeing these global connections as well. So this week I had a group. I still have a group of. So the organization I work is called City to City, but here in London we call the London Project. So we've got African leaders from city to city spending a week with us, having a kind of immersion. Last week we had leaders from Europe doing a kind of immersion as well, but all connected. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I love those global connections. I love it. I can pick the phone and say, well, I've got someone moving to Ghana today. Can you help me to find a church for this person? Can you carry on the discipleship? Can you equip this leader? Or it's just great. Yeah, it's just great. Yeah.
That is really exciting. That is awesome. Some of the benefits of working with other Christians from different cultural backgrounds, or like you said, even other Christian traditions, is that we learn from each other. And when we focus on the gospel, and when we are in cooperation, if it's only in that one thing of the gospel and making the gospel known, that clarifies the simplicity and truth of the gospel to all of us, and it shows us that some of these other things that are not, theological or cultural essentials should not keep us apart when the mission of God is at stake. We can disagree on things, but when we can unify on that, it is mutually beneficial for all of us.
I really struggle with that idea in the past. I was very tribal. I was challenged once by Tim Keller, who said, if you're going to see this person you're meeting in heaven, if you know you're going to see this person in heaven, you can work with him or you can work with her.
That's good.
Because if Jesus said You are part of my family. Who are you to say, I don't want this person? But now, Bucky, what I do is when I'm going to meet someone, I don't check the statement of faith anymore. I don't go to church's website to find out, well, does this leader believe in this? No, I don't do that because anyone can produce a statement of faith. So I meet people. I spend time. Like we've been here for 1 hour. I've got a lot of information about you that gives me the idea that, yeah, I'm going to spend eternity with him. Let's work together. I've got no doubt. Yeah, we can work together for sure. But yeah, and we learn a lot. It humbles you
It does.
when you think, wow, actually, yeah, theologically speaking, we are not on the same page, but wow, the way he does things, the way he behaves, he really lives what he believes. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I've got people from my tribe that when they are on the stage, they say one thing, and when we are uh, just two of us, I'm like, man, what a contradiction.
Yeah. So many times I have met, befriended, and worked with someone who is a dedicated Jesus follower and solid believer in the gospel that I have felt so much closer to and so much more alike than other American Christians that I'm around all the time.
Mhm, mhm.
And that is really a strange thing. But you know what, it makes me think about that. You know, it makes me really reevaluate who is my tribe then.
Wow.
It's not Southern American Christians. It's not people in Texas. It's not, if I'm, you know, at a
Yeah.
denominational church, it's not other Southern Baptists or other Methodists or
Mhm,
other Presbyterians, because
mhm.
gosh, people's beliefs and understandings can vary from person to person.
Ooh,
It is
yeah.
those people who are focused on who Jesus is and what the gospel is, that we are closest to. So
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
about that. Well, who, you know, who is my tribe? Well, Jesus asked this
That's right.
question. You know, well, who are my brothers?
Yeah.
Well, who is a
Yeah.
disciple of Jesus Christ? Well, it's the
Yeah.
people he described. He set the
Mm.
description and qualification for who those people are.
That's
They
right.
obey his
Yeah. Yeah.
commands, and they love,
Yeah.
like he loved. So, gosh, I'm preaching. I didn't mean to get
Yeah.
carried away there, but
And let's not be naive, okay? I've got my theological convictions, but at the same time, I know I'm going to get into the new creation without my sinful nature. I'm like, oh, I got that wrong.
we're all a little bit,
Oh,
yes. And correct, obviously, you know, biblical doctrine, correct teaching is very, very important, because we don't want
yeah, for
sheep to be
sure.
led
Yeah.
astray.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't want some to be deceived and fall away.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But
And look,
we're all a little bit wrong about something, and we'll
yes,
know
for
one day.
sure.
But that's the one thing we can't get wrong is the gospel.
That's
We can't
right.
afford to
Yeah, the
get that wrong.
basics, the foundation, things that are very, very clear. Jesus is God. He's not an angel. He's not a super prophet. He is God.
Yeah,
Okay, why would God come from this divine being come to planet Earth, a broken place? Well, he came to fix it. Fix it. How did he do it? Well, by living a perfect life. I did not come to abolish the law. I came to fulfill it. Was that the only reason? No. He also died on a cross. Was he a criminal? No, he died because of us, criminals. We rebelled against God. So he died a sacrificial death on the cross on our behalf so that whoever believes in him can live forever. Well, but what happened after his death? Well, he rose from the dead. That proves that he was not a liar or a lunatic. He is the Lord. He lives forever. So if we all agree with those basic beliefs, yeah, there are things that, yeah, later on in the future, especially when we're thinking about eschatology, I've got a lot of people in my church
yeah,
ask me a lot of those kind of questions, and I'm always like, well, be careful because you see, the disciples, they spent years with Jesus. They saw him being crucified. They are now in front of him, the risen Lord. The first thing that comes to their mind is it now that you're going to reestablish the kingdom of Israel?
Right.
And I can see Jesus like, oh,
No, you have a task to do. No.
what? No, you see, it's the wrong eschatology, the wrong idea that's not what you need to be focusing on. You're gonna be my witnesses. Forget about this kingdom, this earthly
Yeah.
kingdom.
What's it gonna be like 10,000 years from now? We'll find out. You're not gonna be there unless you know Jesus. So let's establish that first.
You know what, Bucky? I'm taking a master's now, and I'm here. Oh man. I mean, I'm not saying studying is not important, but the things that I'm studying here right now, you see, oh man, look, this chunk of book I have, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
what?
it makes you identify with Paul a little bit. Here I was, Saul of
Yeah.
Tarsus. I had all the theological education available to me in the world, and then I met Jesus.
And then in Philippians chapter 3, he says, oh, that's
It's all
all
rubbish. Yeah,
rubbish.
yeah. To put it
But again,
nicely.
it's
Yeah.
not that I don't value it. It's just that sometimes I think, wow. I mean, there's so much people who don't even know the basics that am I using my time? Anyway, I'm going through a kind of crisis right now, bro. Am I
Well,
using my
I mean,
time
the thing is,
correctly here?
there's a reality too that you read Paul talking about his background and that it's
Yeah,
rubbish, but then you see him being used by the Lord to
yeah,
disciple
yeah,
and train and encourage and
yeah,
correct, because
yeah.
he has a firm understanding of who God is. That's
He
important. It
he
is.
used his knowledge and he managed
Yes.
to articulate so well in a simple way that knowledge that, let's be honest, between Paul and Peter, I think his knowledge helped him to be a much better missionary.
Yeah.
You can't allow these big giants. It's what I think it was Spurgeon who said, never preach to the giraffes. I mean, if you don't preach it to those, don't preach it to John Calvin, don't preach, let them be behind you telling you things and you digest that and you communicate in a simple way. And Paul had that ability. I think he, anyway,
And
I'm brainstorming here now.
he had a good cultural awareness, and that's the other thing is, I've
Yes.
heard, I sort of, I don't know if it's a full-on crisis, I don't know if we call it crisis, but
Yeah.
I do I ponder the balance sometimes between,
Yeah.
as missionaries we want to contextualize the gospel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, how
Yeah.
far are we going to do that before we compromise it? Well,
That's
there is
right.
a
Yeah.
balance here somewhere, and we
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
that Paul had a cultural awareness,
Yeah.
to where he could tailor the
Mm.
way not the message, but the way he presented it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's all about having the right balance. You're right. Yeah.
How can
Oh.
people learn more about the London Project?
So they could go to the website. It's called the londonproject.co.uk. Yeah, I think that would be the easiest way. We do something called the City Lab. We would invite a speaker to come. It's a kind of workshop. Some of this can be watched online, but we basically create those kind of things to just bring people together. We are really a kind of catalytic movement. Sometimes we would create a training. It's not mainly to be equipping people, because there are a lot of different kinds of organizations running training here. It's just as an excuse to bring people together, because you build friendships by doing things together, right? So yeah, you could maybe watch some of those city labs or get some of these trainings online as well. But yeah, the easiest way would be to go to the website, the London Project, .co.uk. Yeah.
Great. Well, if you're watching or listening to this, I hope you've been as encouraged as I have with this conversation. I hope you've been emboldened and encouraged to go and share the gospel. So you know the call, you know the truth of the gospel. If you don't, reach out to us and let's talk about it. But if you know Jesus and you are confident in your conviction in the gospel, You are qualified. You are empowered by God if you have the Holy Spirit living in you to go and share the gospel. So go tell someone about Jesus today.